youth program, plus much more. She is an EBCI tribal member of the Yellow Hill community. She is married to T.W. Sanook, tribal councilman, and is the mother to 5 children, Tristan, Brees, Sienna, Tavon, and Walika. She graduated from Western Carolina University in 2012 with a BA in anthropology and a minor in Cherokee studies. Our next speaker will be Robin Callahan, and she is honored to serve as the program director for the Nurse Family Partnership Program and Cherokee Choices, a chronic disease prevention program for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. She is a registered dietitian with a Master of Health Sciences from Western Carolina University with over 20 years of experience in chronic disease prevention. Her certifications include ACE personal training, the ADA certificates in adult and pediatric weight management, mindful eating certification, resources for resilience, apprenticeship program, and a 300-hour advanced yoga certification from Asheville Yoga Center. And our next speaker will be Kiana Lambert, and she is a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians from the Birdtown community and belongs to the Longhair clan. She is a mother of 3, a grandmother of 2, a sister, auntie, and friend. As the prevention specialist for Cherokee Choices, a program managed by the EBCI's Public Health and Human Services Division, she plans and implements a wide range of educational services and outreach activities, including coordination and oversight of youth mentoring, assisting in the provision of services to families, providing resiliency training and programming focusing on chronic disease prevention, and serves as an individual life coach. Spanning over 24 years of service, Kiana has extensive experience as a cognitive behaviorist, supporting people in recovery from substance abuse and addiction, mental health issues, domestic violence, sexual assault, abuse, and trauma. She is honored to be a part of the team that promotes healing in her community. And our last speaker will be Shayla Mabey. She has worked for the Seneca Nation Health System for 10 years on both residential territories of the Seneca Nation. She has held positions as a pharmacy technician, health planner, community health supervisor, and currently as the chief operating officer. Shayla recently graduated with her master's degree in health services administration from DUville University. So now I will turn it over to the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Thank you.
Thank you, Shki. Shio, Iskoko, Dagodoa. I'm Robin Callahan, Program Director with Cherokee Choices. So what a great theme today that I know we connect with it a lot, just what we have with Cherokee Choices, healing through connection, which I really think is what we are about with Cherokee Choices, is the chronic disease prevention program for the Eastern Band. So what we're going to share today is just part of our story, really focusing on interventions that focus on mindful practices, and really looking at the whole person, that mind, body, spirit. So we really take best practices or practice-based evidence. We listen to the community, and then we work to make the interventions as culturally relevant as possible. So a little bit about our staff. Next slide, please. So this is our amazing staff, beautiful inside and out. And our goal is to promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. This is the huge task when we're looking to prevent chronic disease, because we're not just looking at the diabetes, we're not just looking at heart disease, we're looking at the whole person, promoting wellness inside and out, not just surviving, but thriving is our goal. And as you all know, being stuck in our cubicles or at our homes for COVID for a few years, getting back to that connection with the community is what we are all about. So the population that we serve is about 15,000 enrolled members over 5 counties, so very rural area in the beautiful Smoky Mountains. So very blessed to live in a gorgeous place to live, work, and play. And we also really work to include tribal employees and employees of the hospital in the Cherokee Boys Club, just to create that healthy social support system for the whole community. You can go ahead to the next one. All right, so just looking at a glance of some of the health disparities, as it is nationwide, overweight and obesity are on the rise with the pediatric and adult populations. Also looking at cardiovascular disease, these numbers don't include congestive heart failure, stroke, and arteriosclerosis, but we do know that cardiovascular disease is one of the number one causes of death among Native Americans. But really, we're looking at deeper than those are sort of what we see on the outside, right? What we want to get to is what are the root causes? So what are some of the underlying causes that may be causing these increased rates of diabetes and obesity? And so that's where we start to dive into ACEs. And Kiana is going to talk more about that, but ACEs are your adverse childhood experiences. So things like neglect, divorce, incarceration, drug abuse. So when we start looking at the rates of ACEs, when you have an ACEs score of 4 or more, you start seeing those rates of type 2 diabetes 1.6 times higher, cancer, heart disease over 2 times higher, and then lung disease almost 4 times higher. So we are really looking at starting to address those root causes and healing the whole person from little bitty with our nurse family partnership program in the womb and promoting those healthy pregnancies and healthy babies all the way through our summer camps and our other interventions that we're going to hit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Kiana to dive in our next slide a little bit more about the pair of ACEs and how adverse community environments in these adverse childhood experiences really combine together.
So as Robin was saying, you know, when you look in a tribal community, in our community specifically, we experience trauma on a daily basis. We live in a rural area, but we are fingered within other communities and counties that are non-native. So we have, you know, the roots, which is the poor soil. You know, you're looking at the tree and we're the tree, right? We as a community, as a people are a tree. And if we are faced with discrimination, poverty, housing, violence, then we can't thrive. You know, we are lacking the nutrients to be a healthy person, a healthy community. So in that, with the poor soil, when you're trying to grow, how can you be a healthy parent, a loving parent, if you never experienced that? How can you be a dependable employee if you've never had that taught to you or shown? We have, you know, domestic violence, emotional, sexual abuse, and it's just a cycle. You know, it goes back to the roots, which is generational. So when we are looking at the clients and the participants that come into our programs, we already know, you know, and that's a blessing of being a small community and knowing one another is we know the families. So we know the soil they grew up in and we know where they are now, but we take them where they are as a human being and love them where they are and help them heal. So you can take that sprout off that tree and plant it in healthy soil and start a new tree. And you start a new person. If you'll go to the next slide, please. This is just another graphic or a couple graphics of the way it looks. You know, when we have children in youth programs that experience this on a daily, you know, I've worked with adolescents that are homeless, you know, and you look at a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and you're thinking, how do you not have a home? But they don't. They go from couch to couch. So how can they thrive in school? They can't. It is simply survival. And Robin will get into that in the next slide with our resiliency. And one of the reasons that we brought in that program is to teach us how to come back centered into ourselves so that we can handle the daily stressors of inadequate food, inadequate housing, domestic violence, sexual assault, overdose. You know, many of our communities are just rampant with drug abuse and addiction and poverty. And that is something that we're trying to heal, as Robin said, as a whole, not just looking at one piece. You have to get to the center of that pain, as Ms. Holly spoke about earlier, in order to start that healing process to become a new whole person. Next slide. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Robin, and she'll go into our program.
So the Resources for Resiliency Guide was designed just for this, in response of the ACEs pandemic. So trauma-informed, trauma-responsive. You do not have to be a therapist to teach it. We had 5 of us that went through a 5-month training program online virtually through COVID. So we're like, what can we do? So I think that's the beauty of it, is they're putting it out in schools with teachers, with people on the front lines. So when there is a situation that someone is in a trauma response, or someone's distressed, someone's having a hard day, you can use a little reset skill and help them reset their nervous system. So this training really, you learn how your body and your brain respond to stress and trauma. And then you claim your ability to reset your own nervous system. So it's all about empowerment and teaching people a skill set that they can get into the resilient zone themselves, increasing connection, increasing compassion, and staying well even in the face of ongoing struggle. Next slide, please. So this is our resilient zone. So hopefully we're all here right now, right in the green. We're calm, we're collected. You know, right before Yo and Kiana and I walked in here, and probably all over here, we might have been a little amped up, right? You feel your heart beating. You feel a little anxious, right? We all can get bumped out into our amped up zone every once in a while. Or sometimes we may feel shut down. We feel helpless. We feel sad, exhausted. If you think about maybe a kid sitting with their head on the table, or maybe that coworker that never socializes, always has their door closed, maybe they may be feeling a little shut down. And we can go up and down in this zone, right, and still function. And one thing, I won't teach the whole 2-day program, I promise right now, but it's not about not feeling emotion, right? You feel all that emotion, and that's very important, but you have an awareness, right, with these tools. So your nervous system doesn't jolt you out of amped up or shut down, where your critical thinking brain is no longer online and you can't make rational decisions. Does that make sense? All right, so next slide, please. So these are just some of the tools. Sense In is really the heart of every tool. So that is turning to those positive physical sensations. And then you use those tools use that Sense In with all of the other tools. What are our sensations, right? Our sound, our sight, our smell, our touch. And then we can use Rapid Reset, Connect, which we do all the time, resource, restore, highlight, and redirect. So I'm probably going to go over time, but just so we can experience it, let's take 30 seconds out and we're going to sense in. So just find a comfortable seat, and maybe find that tall spine on your chair. And then if you'd like to, if you feel comfortable with it, you can close your eyes, or you can just find a soft gaze. And then just feel your feet resting against the floor. Feel a length all the way through the crown of your head. And just bring awareness to your breath. So no control, no judgment. And as you're breathing, just notice any muscle tension or tightness. Notice your heartbeat. Is it fast or slow? And then we'll take our hands together. Just sort of open and close our hands. And let's start to rub our hands together. And eyes can be closed or open, sort of feeling that heat. And then clap. Open and close. And then go ahead and take your hands away from each other just a little bit. And then together again, just about an inch or two, open and close. Hey, and then notice how you feel. Did anybody feel any kind of tingly vibration, any kind of feeling in their hand? Great. So that's a sense in. So that's just bringing awareness to our nervous system, bringing our nervous system back to reset. Next slide, please. All right, so over this past year, we had 58 participants complete the full 2-day training, and 64 participants complete anywhere between a 60 to a 90-minute presentation. And this included the Recovery Center in Snowbird, which is a 3-month recovery center. And gosh, did it hit home. I mean, it was like light bulbs going off. Also, the Youth Council, our Stress and Healing Arts Retreat, and the Remember the Removal riders that ride the Trail of Tears from on bikes from Cherokee or from Ochota to Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And then we had 25 that went on to a champion training, which really learns about advocacy and how you get that information out to the community. So you can see here some of the survey results. Just 23 of them, but 17 rated the program as outstanding. 22 out of 23 were very likely to use some or all of the skills. So one of the quotes that they shared is, good to know ACEs don't define who you are. ACEs is not a destiny. Trauma is passed on, and it's important to let go of what you cannot change. Next slide, please. So part of this Resources for Resiliency was with our Public Health and Human Services Resilient Warriors Strategic Plan. So these are strategic planning teams based on the chief's mission, the chief's vision, and the Public Health and Human Services vision. So one of the strategic plans is family resiliency. So how do we, as a division, as a tribe, promote family resiliency? So this is one of the pieces to not just do this program internally, but how do we partner with other tribal programs and other public health and human programs to get this information out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Yo for our next slide, transitioning into our summer camps. And a big shout out to these ladies right here. They just got done leading 9 weeks of summer camp programming from 7:30 to like 5 o'clock every single day. So I'm surprised she has the energy to be here today.
I will try to wrap this up. I could go on and on about our summer camp. So each year that we do this, I think this is going on our 7th year as far as like the years that we did summer camp. Our 2nd year technically of having 2 summer camps, one specifically being for yoga, the other one being more cultural. The 3rd camp is our Native Youth Gardens, which luckily I'm not over with, thank God. It was rough for the first 2. But this year we had 72 applicants that was received. So this is not a first come, first served basis. This is based off of need. And when we do hand out our applications, we do have to let the parents or guardians know that there's some tough questions they have to ask on there. We have some professionals that come in and help with certain things during camp. And on that, part of those questions that was on our application asked about parents in prison, loss, death. And so when she came in and was given her little activity with the kids, she mentioned that she actually holds group counseling up at the school, and there is a large number of our kids that are dealing with parents in prison. They have a new group with parents dealing with divorce. So a lot of stuff that we don't realize that our kids are going through, that we think it's just us, but no, they're feeling that too. So we had 25 campers for each camp, ages from 7 up to 12. And in these, we all focus on the yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, mindful eating, and then we add parts of the language and cultural into it. So you can go to the next slide, please. So this is just kind of a brief schedule of what we do. It looks very busy, but we have to kind of keep it in there so we stay on track with what we're doing and who's coming in and everything. So you'll see we've got community members that come in. This was what we call tohi salve. It can be used for bee stings, poison ivy, anything like that. So they got to learn to make that with native plants and everything. This is a pottery painting project. It was so amazing to watch how they would take something and create it into their own. Up above is some yoga poses. You see the little doggy, they like that. They work in groups together to learn trust as well. And then we also try to incorporate some native foods. That's my attempt at lye dumplings. So next slide, please. Then we also have other of our EBCI tribal programs come in to help us with other things for them. So this is natural resources, and they do a creek snorkeling. So the kids get to learn about what is actually in our area, in the rivers, and it's swimming. They love it. So, and then over here, that is at Lake Santitla when we went down and learned how to play marbles, which is very technical. They got very competitive. Next slide, please. And then this is the part of our yoga room that we actually were able to finally fix up so that it's actually secluded so that we don't have to worry about outside noises or people coming in and out. So during this, they get their own little mats. They learn baby poses. And I'll talk about that on the next slide too. So this is just an idea of what all we put into it. So we try to add some of the syllabary language, the marbles, medicine walk, Darnell Farms, which is next to Kadua, our mother town. So they get to get a lot of different ways of connecting with their culture. When Miss Echohawk talked about cultural self and the importance of it, a lot of our kids, we ask a lot of questions on our surveys. And one of those is about being connected to your community. In the beginning of the camp, it surprised us. There was several that did not feel any connection, did not. By the end of the camp, that number had increased, that they were starting to feel a connection. It's just, our camp is open, but we also have 3 schools that they come from. So they're not always knowing each other. So there's Cherokee, Swain County, and Jackson County. So at Cherokee, I know they're able to get some of that cultural base. The language is easier there for them to get, be able to attend, but Swain County doesn't have that. Jackson County doesn't have that. They have to bring out outside people and to try to help with that. So we try to give them a little connection so that they're able to feel like they belong. And that's the hard part sometimes too. Okay, next slide. So at the end of the camp, like I mentioned, we do our surveys and everything. Of course, horseback riding is a very high stressful day. A lot of them are scared, including me. The horses are big, but it's also a test to let them know that you can do something that's hard and come out feeling good about yourself. We had one that returned from last year that was able to come back, and she freaked out last year, would not get on it. She cried the whole time. I mean, she was a pitiful mess. This year, when she came back, she said that that was the fear that she was going to tackle, and she did. She's able to do that. So at the end, the health changes, we had 73% that drank more water. That's a hard thing, especially, our kids are not the ones that are buying the groceries. They're not the ones dealing with that. So sometimes it's getting through the kids to help with the parents too, as well at home. 68% laughing more, feeling good about themselves, less anger, conquering fears, less sweet drinks, improved sleep, energy, felt calm, positive attitude, and felt stronger. Next slide, please. So this is just some little pictures of everything they got to do. You notice when they did their baby poses, that at the end of our yoga camp, they do a little presentation with themselves. So it's kind of like everybody doesn't always feel comfortable with being in front of people and talking. So they kind of get to do that, but they did really well. They did a little dance with it too as well, the sun salutations. It's always a little fun thing. You see a lot of them get scared, but they're also laughing the whole time when they're doing it. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the cultural camp. So instead of 3 weeks like the yoga camp, this ended up being 2.5 weeks because it came on during the 4th of July. So we emphasize more culture with that as well. They did get to repeat a lot of the other stuff that we had done before. Judicola rock is one of the petroglyphs that we were able to see today. A lot of the kids did not know about it. It is in Jackson County. It's about 40 minutes away from us. So I like to bring Judicola and the stories into it just because Judicola was one of the first, what I would call environmentalist, humanitarian, but he was given a bad rap because of what he looked like. But he was also great about wanting to take care of the animals, want to take care of the land. So I always bring that into play because we deal with a lot of kids that have confidence issues. They feel like they don't look like everybody else. And so I always try to bring stories like that to kind of get my point across that just because you may look different or see things differently, you still contribute to this world. Next slide, please. So like I said, it looks very, very busy. This year we were actually really lucky. The museum got a new cultural director. And so we were able to bring in some people from the museum, which is great because there's also other people that came with him that's trying to learn as well. So it's kind of like they taught us, he taught them, and the other group too. So it's really great. Next slide, please. So at the end, we had 20 that were able to fill out our surveys. So we had campers that had better attitudes. They felt nicer. They felt safe. They were dealing with some family issues at home. And so camp was the safe place this year for them. And it kind of gets you in your feels when you hear stuff and see stuff like that. Excited to wake up in the morning. Some were tired too, but they were happy to be there and learn more about their culture. What they would like summer camp to keep doing, of course, was horseback riding, rafting. Rafting's big too with that. Staying positive, not to be mean. And you'd be surprised that even especially our younger kids, they can really be mean to each other. And so we try to teach, being good to each other and being kind, treating others with respect, tired from getting up early, less angry, and not as mean to my sisters, because we had several siblings in this camp. So that was kind of big. Health changes, drinking more water, feeling good about themselves, feeling mindful and aware, more energy, eating plenty of fruits, managing their fears, positive attitude, eating less junk food, laughing more often, less angry, healthier eating and feeling stronger, lose weight that you want it to lose, and eating plenty of vegetables and sleeping well. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a wrap up. We have a great partner with the Sequoia Golf Club. And so he actually takes time out to do a golf club with our kids so they get to learn and experience something like that as well. Then we always incorporate yoga, even if it's cultural too as well, just more activities to get them out and about. Next slide, please. Let me go with the youth garden too. Okay, so the Native Youth Garden, we've been trying to get this program to come back. So this year we had 12 youths that were 13 to 15. 10 were able to complete the program. So out of the 2 weeks, they had 3 planning days. We partnered with Cooperative Extension. They helped do a lot of great stuff with us. Katie Rainwater, who was over it, really, really did great with this program. If you could go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is just kind of her schedule too, as well, of what they would do. This is the day that they were making kraut. So that was something unique that they hadn't got to do before. We have a cannery on the reservation, but after COVID, it's been really hard to get in there so that they can learn some of the canning. So we're able to do that. Next slide, please. Also, they get to go to other places to learn about their culture. Down here at the bottom, that's learning to do like bat boxes and how bats are great for the environment and stuff like that. That was also part of natural resources too. Then they learned marbles. This was a cucumber from the garden that they had planted. And then they also went down to Snowbird too, saw the Junaluska Memorial Museum, got to learn more about that, learned marbles. They were down there at the Maggie Wachacha gardening spot, and Maggie Wachacha is one of our beloved women. And so it's really great that members of her family was there helping them learn how she gardened and did stuff too. All right, next slide. So out of the survey, we had 7 that were able to do the survey for us at the end of the camp. And horseback riding was their favorite, rafting, having the hands-on activities and making crafts. Something that they want to use beyond was how to identify plants, fencing tomatoes, how potatoes look when they grow, rafting, the info about bats, healthy foods and how to make them at home, gardening so I don't have to pay for food. Katie, when she did her end of camp, she gave them all unique awards to them. And so we had one that was the grand gardener. So it's really good. So he really learned a lot and was able to take away from that. The health changes, we saw 43% increased confidence, positive attitude, healthier eating, less angry, laughing more often, increased mindfulness and awareness, and more water. And on the less angry, that's really great because if anybody's worked with teens, you know they're moody, very moody. So anything to help with that was really great. Next slide, please. All right. I'll turn it back over to Ms. Kiana.
Okay, so part of our mindfulness that we work with, we've repeated several times, is working within. So Yo and I are instructors for Tai Chi, and we teach that weekly. Yoga would be Yo and Robin, that's their specialty. They have several different types of yoga that they teach ongoing and have people that come back and have been coming for years. Life coaching is new is a new program that we're able to offer, and that's Yo and I, and we do individual sessions with whoever. We have it advertised as healthy without the hard. It doesn't always have to be a physical activity goal. They call me the emotion lady. If anybody's emotional, go see Kiana. So for me, it's in the inside. If I can find out what is bothering me internally, then I can do the other stuff, because if I'm depressed or down, I'm not going to eat right. I'm not going to be physical because I emotionally cannot do it. So the life coaching is 6 weeks, one-on-one. I do them virtually. Yo does them virtually, whatever works for the individual. We do them during lunchtime. If it's tribal employee, whatever that person needs is what we work on for them. And it's up to them. If it's, I want to walk 15 minutes a day, whatever their goals are, that's what we help them achieve. If it's going back to school, one of my clients, we worked on getting housing and graduate school applications in. That's what she wanted. So that's what we did. Robin did a special one during the summer while we were in summer camp with her yoga. And I'm really surprised and amazed that our community is looking outside of what we normally do, which is not much as far as taking care of ourselves, because we're raised to take care of everybody else. And so now we're kind of shifting, because our vision for me personally is 7 generations. I have grandkids now, and I want to make sure that them and their kids and grandkids are healthier than I am today. Next slide. This is one of the sheets that I use and that Yo uses whenever we're working with people with life coaching. And it's, looking at how you spend your time and things that you want to achieve and work on. And the biggest thing about life coaching is, and goals is being specific, making sure whatever it is that you want to look at or achieve is measurable, actionable. There's something that you can do, and you can have a checklist. It's got to be realistic, and it's got to be time bound. So you want it to be challenging, but not overwhelming, so that you just don't do it because it's too hard, And this is one of my favorite quotes. Everything you want is just outside your comfort zone. And that is so hard, even for me, because I'm a very shy person. And so being in front of people like this talking makes me a nervous wreck, but I'm getting outside of my comfort zone. Next slide. And with this, I'll turn it back over to Yo. But I do want to say, with those kids that we worked with all summer, watching them grow, even in just the 3 weeks, was amazing. They went from being these moody, little quiet people to bright smiles and interacting with one another, and watching them realize that we're all one people, because they come from different schools, different communities, and they got to know and learn that there are more people like them. They're not by themselves.
So this was the Peaceful Warriors After School program. I had 15 that applied, and surprisingly, I had about 15 every time that came, and that got a little crazy, but we had a good time. So when we first started coming up with the program, the one thing I wanted the most was, we had so many different yoga poses and yoga cards that were at kids level, and I wanted to try to change that up to put our spin onto it. So we had a great contact with our IT, Justin Reed. He is a great artist. He really is. And I gave him an idea, showed him a little bit of one of the cards I had, and he took it, and this is what we came up with. I am absolutely in love with how he did it, especially our reverse warrior pose, where it's got the 7 clans in it. So when they did their baby poses in our yoga camp, we used this. They all got their own cards so they could take home and learn. And on the back of it, it would help them with the pronunciations as well too. All right, next. So out of the 15, 12 usually there's only twice. And I know it was twice that I had all 15 by myself, because they all came in at once. And I was like, oh my God, can I do this today? But when Robin was talking about the resources for resiliency and the tools that you use, she talks about sensing in, and sensing in is very important for you to realize what's going on. So what I did to try to change it up, I do it 2 different ways. One is the colors, like what color do you feel like you are today? And you'd be surprised at what they would say. So this year we did the weather chart. So, I'd be like, what's the weather today? And they would go from there, and they picked out their own, which one they wanted. Is like agaliha, like it's sunny, I'm happy. And then I tell them to describe it to me where they felt it out in their body. And then this was our turtle clay, because they would do parts of the yoga, the Tai Chi, and then we would add in a craft to it as well. So this was their turtle pots, and the turtle is my favorite legend of how he got cracks. And then this is one of them where they're practicing their tree pose out in the park. So we had 30 to 45 minutes of the yoga or Tai Chi. The Tai Chi, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do some of that in Cherokee, just because snake in the grass pose is going to be a little bit longer than just a warrior pose. But they all love that, anything that they felt confident in, because when they're there, how they do the pose is how they do the pose. And my pose looks different compared to Robin's. And I explain that to them all the time, so they don't feel bad when they can't do a full pose and stuff like that too. So at the end of it, basically, we worked with mindfulness of the body through nutrition, sleep, their water intake, positive thoughts and actions. Next slide, please. All right. And I'll turn it back over to Robin.
And I know we are over time, so I'm going to wrap this up in about 30 seconds. So we do a 2-day stress and healing arts retreat, and this is our 7th year. This is for adults. It really focuses on healing and promoting opportunities to increase coping skills with stress, trauma, and grief. So this is our 2 days. The 3 main things we focus on are cultural engagement, activities, mindfulness-based programming, and then our wellness programming. Next slide, please. So we had, and we had about 50 participants total, about 35 each day. And next slide. Great. So some of the survey results from this, favorite: yoga, the story box, sound therapy, Cornhusk dolls, plants, healing touch. But really the main thing that came away is people come away not only feeling refreshed and rejuvenated, but they have a set of skills. They have a set of resources in their pocket that they can turn to within the community when they're feeling stressed again in their real everyday life. So next slide, please. So resilience, the art of thriving. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. My apologies to our next speaker that we went over, but we did start late, right? If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you for your time, Shki.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shayla Mabey. I've been working on this project for about 7 years now, so it's very near and dear to my heart. I'm going to go over Seneca Nation highlights of our Good Health and Wellness in Indian Country project. Next slide, please. Presentation outline. I'm going to go over best practices for community engagement and buy-in, removing silos for sustainability, and aligning health priorities, community needs, and cultural values to engage stakeholders. I do have a timer going, so I will take about 7 minutes, so we're on time for the break. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the Seneca Nation. I'm a lifelong member. I have lived on territory my entire life and work 5 minutes from home. Very happy to have lived on territory, and I've also worked for both of our residential territories for the nation, which are about 45 minutes apart, about 45 minutes south of Buffalo, New York State. Next slide, please. A little bit about my workplace. Seneca Nation Health System was one of the first 638 contracts. So we are a tribal health program since 1976. We've also, 2017 was the first time that one of our health centers was recognized by NCQA as a patient-centered medical home. Next slide, please. For engagement and buy-in, our project has always been a for us, by us. Started with community health assessments, focus groups, big community health assessment workshops so that people knew what we were getting ourselves into back in, I think we started this process in 2012 before we even had the grant and had the funds. One of our taglines has been making breastfeeding easier, one pod at a time, which I believe was a tag that USET had gave our program at one point. I've also said throughout the years, just noticing the programs that we've done, that the event, the venue, or the facility must be family and baby friendly in order to be breastfeeding friendly. One of our first hiccups was having our community baby shower at our newly built fire hall. Beautiful building. We have babies 1 and under in there. And the facilities, in order to cut budgets, didn't have a changing table in the restrooms at all in the building. So that was a huge nod to why this program was so important, because we had a community baby shower there that wasn't in a facility that really welcomed families. And then, of course, first and foremost, everything that we're doing is addressing health disparities within the nation. One way to engage stakeholders, again, for us, by us. I just want to read this really quick. This is the side of our Mamavapod. It's a lactation suite, which we had 100% customized with photographs. So this is like the end cap of that. We just put Seneca Nation Health System serving the community since 1976. But the most important part is for Seneca people, pregnancy is a sacred state of being for women. Keeping mothers and babies safe and healthy has always been an honorable and expected way of life. We had to do things like this so that people understood the time, the grant funds, the resources that were put into this were needed. Everything was purposeful, and there's no one that can say that's a bad program. You know, why would we want to put money into our mothers? Why would we want to put resources into the future generations? Things like that incorporate logos. We also have the dome flower designs that are traditionally seen in Seneca art and our beadwork. And the very bottom is the tag that we created for this program. Probably the very, very start of this grant, maybe back in 2015, 2016, we named the program Our People, Our Health, Our Legacy. Next slide, please. Past program successes. Back in 2019, we did our first Indigenous breastfeeding counselor training, general breastfeeding promotion. We've done supplies, the 3 Mama pods, which are throughout our territories. And back in 2019, the Seneca Nation initiated a breastfeeding policy for its employees. Other program events, our Child and Family Services has been adapting the Positive Indian Parenting guidelines, workbooks to be for traditional Seneca parenting. So I got to speak on breastfeeding in that new curriculum that they're creating. We also have a men's health event, which was just broad kind of tables by topic. And we made sure that we had a breastfeeding support table there because uncles, spouses, grandpas, they're all important for breastfeeding support. And they all help that family dynamic of creating healthy lifestyles and keeping mothers engaged and supported. Next slide, please. A few program updates, recent successes. We just had a 3-day and a 5-day training for the Indigenous breastfeeding counselor training in May. We've also had, I believe, 5 people within the Seneca Nation certified for baby wearing training so that they can help mothers and families safely baby wear. One of my most, I guess, honored to be a part of and honored to see this come to fruition because we've been talking about it for so long is the traditional baby food. We worked with our agricultural farm program, GHWIC Farms, and we also worked with our SDPI program to get traditional baby foods. We've done our first video. We also had a big supply box that people got. It was like kind of like HelloFresh, but more. You know, you got a cutting board, you got the food, you got the little cube trays and storage containers. So it was really nice that everyone got everything they needed. And then we also published a video that went through all the steps for safe prepping, cooking, storing. And we did Buffalo Creek squash, and we're doing white corn mush next. Next slide, please. We also just recently did a breastfeeding photo shoot that was back in April. We had really good participation. We were able to get a variety of stages from pregnancy, newborn to extended breastfeeding. And we also were able to get 4 generations. Seneca's matrilineal. So our clans and way of life goes back to the mothers. We also did breastfeeding friendly regalia. That one was really hard because it was still kind of in the midst of the pandemic, and we're also asking a very vulnerable population because they are caretaking for the elders and they are caretaking for our young ones. So having mothers participate wasn't the greatest this past time. Next slide, please. We have a mother's area and diaper changing station at our powwow. This was only our second year, but we would have had, I think, 4 under our belts if not for COVID, but our powwow was canceled. Next slide, please. Successful brand. The first one is what we had used back when we did the community health assessment. When we started focusing on breastfeeding, maternal, prenatal health, we moved over to the second brand. Next slide, please. Here's some photos of our Mamavas. We wanted to take the opportunity to not just, literally show people what they're for, but to increase awareness and show people that we're in our community. It's not a stock image. It's not, a baby that looks cute in regalia. It is a mother showing you what these pods are for. Next slide, please. This is just a quick infographic of breastfeeding. Again, something we put out to justify the resources that we were putting into the program. Next slide, please. And then resiliency engagement that we used during the pandemic, a lot of mailers, subscription boxes where you just come and pick them up, website, social media, and engagement and education to the support systems were increased. Next slide, please. And that's it. Nyawe. If you want more information, I do have a couple business cards with me. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much to our presenters for your great presentations. I really enjoyed seeing everything you guys are working on. I know it's almost break time, but I just wanted to open up if anyone has any questions or anything for any presenters real fast. Go on, what? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Back in 2007. So we've been on our own, a very customized version of Centricity. I haven't looked back because there's some 2015 from my training. Because breastfeeding isn't just did you breastfeed, yes or no. It's how long did you breastfeed, when did you initiate, duration, because people are always scared to supplement. And, we want that noted. If they did something, you can still breastfeed. Right. And place your moment on it. Pause. We just had a visit from a regional director for and she thought I've never seen your location. We have them in our primary care. So on care office territory, we have it in our health center. And on East territory, we have it in our health center and in our. So people who are going to the casino for events, conferences, going to the casino, tourist-ish area.
Are there any other questions?
during the last day of camps, we will line up, especially for the younger ones, we have to get smaller groups because they are going a mile a minute. So trying to get all that information out. So she would go over the questions with them and ask them just because in some of the stuff she wasn't there with us all the time, so that they would feel more comfortable saying it wasn't one of us doing it. And you would get they didn't stop you with a talk. That's why break it down for them and then talk to you. Culture comes a little bit easy. Basically what we do is so that we both see a little bit of the changes. I always give them an opportunity to say something out loud. Or if they didn't feel comfortable saying it, the writing skills weren't good. And that answers the small groups that usually 6 or 7.
Okay, I think they're trying to get in here. So I know this is a great presentation, but we got to go, guys. But it will be available on the attendee website for 3 months after if anyone wants to look at it. It's recorded. Also, for our presenters, we have gifts. Thank you from USET. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.